Thanks, Mr Speaker. You know, I was going to move an extension of time, but I thought his backbench would have killed me. Back there, sitting there like house bricks without the animation, all the enthusiasm. And the reason they're feeling that way over there is that they know full well that ultimately the Prime Minister has not been capable of providing the economic leadership our nation needs. That's exactly where we've ended up. There is no longer a point to this Prime Minister. There is no longer a point to this government. When the Prime Minister was describing the centrepiece of his own budget, he deliberately didn't even tell the full story, not only of the cost, but of the measure itself. He talked about small businesses growing. Here's the figures he said: to 10 million, to 25 million, to 50 million, to 100 million, and then he stopped there. But the budget plan doesn't stop there. Doesn't stop there at all. Sure, right now and last year, under the Abbott government, we had the establishment on a bipartisan basis of the small business tax rate. We've got bipartisan agreement that the small business tax rate should be lowered. But what they want to do is change the definition of small business every year. And it doesn't stop where the Prime Minister stopped. Over the next 7 years, we end up with eligibility for the small business tax rate going to businesses worth $1 billion. $1 billion! I've got to say, in the history of this nation, there has only ever been one Prime Minister who would regard that as a small business. Budgets are about choices. And when they say, well, why should we have to tell you what the 10-year projection is? The answer's simple. They've told us what their 10-year cuts are. They told us from the start what the 10-year cuts would be to hospitals, what the 10-year cuts would be to schools. We know what the 10-year projections are on the cuts that they give to families. We know that this is in the context of a budget where they put off all their talk of childcare. Remember at the hearing that workplace participation was going to be the key. All pushed off in this budget, all pushed off, all gone. And that's gone because choices have been made. And the choices that they have made are fundamentally different to the choices that a Labor government would make. And while they've wanted to say, oh, it's some sort of class war, it's not that. It simply runs against the grain of an old-fashioned concept of Australian fairness. Because the benefits, it's not like they're going to the top half of Australia versus the bottom half of Australia. It's going to about the top 2% of Australia. And the rest of Australia, at best, gets $6 a week. If you're a single parent working on $87,000 a year with 2 high school kids, you, even after you've had that tax benefit, are still $4,500 behind. That's the choice that's been made. And I'm sure they're out there thinking, oh, but I've got my $6. I've got my $6 a week. That's the choice that's been made. That's before they get to the reality of someone who brings in $1 million in a year being $17,000 better off. The concept of saying, would we like taxes to be lower, doesn't answer the question when you also have to say, is the price of that an attack on every family in Australia? Is the price of that you're going to gut what we were told before the election was a bipartisan approach on school funding? When we were told before the election that pensions would not be changed, and then we saw a government come in here that budget after budget has tried in every different way to cut the pension. It doesn't take much for people to be able to say they know the priorities of those opposite. We know that those opposite of the Australian people know that the government was given a choice, and they chose the top end of town over the vast majority of Australia. That's the choice they made. And the price of that is if you're a pensioner, you get cut. If you're a family, you get cut. If you're sick, Medicare goes backwards, hospitals go backwards. If you believe in jobs and growth, no one delivers jobs and growth by cutting education, cutting infrastructure and making the internet slower. No country in the world would try to do that. But that's the prescription that's offered by those opposite.